Sailing just doesn't get much better than this. The 942 boats which raced on the first day of Skandia Cowes week were treated to perfect sailing conditions. A gentle and warm southwesterly, together with brilliant sunshine and sparkling Solent waters, brought the crowds out to watch the sailors enjoying themselves. The superb conditions gave all 34 classes an exhilarating day's racing, with the western Solent benefiting from the stronger 15-knot breezes, with slightly less in the east. The fleet of 92 SB3s were first away at 10 o'clock, and true to form, they delivered a general recall to entertain the crowds at the Royal Yacht Squadron start line. This fleet, which is the largest in White Group, starts half an hour ahead of the rest of the dayboat classes to allow for this sort of problem. At their second start, it looked as if plenty of boats were over, but the race officer signalled an individual recall, and just 4 boats were called OCS. Like the rest of the dayboat classes following behind them, the SB3s short-tacked along the green towards Egypt Point, and with the tide low it was inevitable that several boats would find the bottom as they cheated the tide in shallow water. Jeff Carveth was to emerge as victor on the first day. He's the European and national champion and is sailing the Earls Court Boat Show's sponsored SB3. Carveth won a 68-second victory over PwC, steered by 3 times runner-up at Cowes, John O'Shelley. His success came despite crossing the start line in the second row of the fleet. In third place was Glenn Burke in Musto, with Simon Blake's Sordid Fish in fourth and Russell Peters almost 3 minutes behind in Seldom Seen. On the outer line, Class 1 led the big boat fleets away. They chose to start near the outer end of the line and head inshore to cheat the tide along the mainland side of the Solent. In this class it was the Rykel Pew 60 Lockie which took line honours, but on corrected time it was the Swan 601 Spirit of Jethu which won the Queen's Cup 6 minutes ahead of a TP52 Flash Glove. Class 2 were next away on the outer line, and they too soon tacked inshore to cheat the strong flood tide. This class was won by Henry Lloyd, followed by Exabyte 4 and Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. Just 17 seconds separated the 2 leaders, making this class one of the closest fought of the day. Class 3 saw 52 starters looking to get the best start near the outer limit buoy, with the freedom to tack and head inshore as soon as possible. Their 20-mile course was to take them west to East Leap, then over to Saltmead on the island shore, then back out into the tide to Westleigh. From there they would head west to a mark off Yarmouth, before turning downwind and around 5 more marks in the central Solent. The Swan 42 Uxorious 3 had the best of the day in this class. She's got one of the highest handicaps in the fleet, but she enjoyed the conditions to finish 2.5 minutes on corrected time ahead of a Grand Soleil 44 Holmatro, with the Grand Soleil 43 Rourke in third. The Darings are a local Cowes fleet and are one of the prettiest of the classic day racers. Their fleet has 28 entries this year, and they'll see some close racing. At this start, number 30 Darius was judged OCS and failed to return, but the rest of the fleet got away clean. Number 4 Audax had a good start, a bit out from the inner end, and with good speed to take her ahead of the boats further inshore. Even further out was one of the class favourites, number 3 Dauntless, and her skipper Giles Peckham was wise to stay clear of the shallows, but were waiting to trap the unwary. Audax was the first to hit the bottom, closely followed by daring number 1. Number 21 Division Bell was even closer inshore and must have been worried when the 2 outside him hit the rocks. Number 1 was firmly aground, but on this leg most of the top 10 were to hit the ground at least once. Meanwhile, Dauntless stayed clear of the shallows to sail away to take an uncontested win by 5 minutes. X1 Design racing has been going on since 1911, And still they deliver 72 entries, the second largest white group fleet after the SB3s. Not to be outdone by the young upstarts, the X-boats also had a general recall for their first start. The second start saw only an individual recall, but 9 boats were spotted over on this start who didn't return and were to suffer the disappointment when they were scored OCS. The X's are the last class to start, and they've got the luxury of a lion in bed each morning. By the time of their start, the crowds along the shore had swelled in size, and they were treated to a classic spectacle as the little keel boats beat along the shore, cheating the strong tide. After racing for nearly 3 hours, the winner was Ado Jardine sailing X140 Lucretia, just 63 seconds ahead of Moss Fitzgerald in X124 Kathleen, with Steve Lawrence sailing the 1923 vintage X26, just 30 seconds behind. The SB3s may have youth on their side, but the X1 designs leave them standing when it comes to history.